out of. But the lane going down was wide open.
Were people going up?
It was just stopped right below the dam,
Where were the rocks?
right below the, or in that vicinity.
There's a boulder about the size of a truck bed
Yeah.
that rolled down just below the last skin in on that curve into that first little cabin and into the driveway.
Oh, wow.
For this, the two policemen there, if they're lying, would not want to have something across my front end. Was, wow, big freaking rock.
Yeah, my wife tried to go down there earlier, she said it was closed, and all the signs driving here on I-15 says Ogden Canyon closed, take alternate
I
route.
checked UDOT before I came, and it said it was supposed to open at 5:30, so I went over to the.
I was in town, so.
So you went to the bike?
I just came down and now.
Yeah, cool, glad you got down. Bill, this makes so much more sense.
I like it. I think it's cleaner.
Yeah.
It's easier to read. All that other good stuff.
Commissioner Wampler, you out in
Yes,
warmer parts of the country?
I am.
Well, it's
Yes.
snowing here.
Yeah, not here.
Trevor had like, you checked her the time, did you type that up or did you give it to him?
I gave it to him. You want a copy of that?
Eventually. I'll get rid of it for the meeting, just so then that way I have to follow the right process.
Let me go up and get that for you.
I can go up too,
No, you're good. I'll bring it down to you. And then, for the meeting tonight, I'll just be here for the pre-meeting.
You're gonna do your, do you wanna talk about the rules of order here?
We can chat about it.
I don't know if you want to chat about it tonight or.
It's really brief. In fact, probably till everyone's here. And then we can chat about that and then, kind of remind you what, the commissioners indicated about making changes.
Yep.
So we chat about that and then Bill's stuff. I'll be right back.
Okay, that'd be great, just in that way I'm following.
You bet. Let's go.
I think I get them, but. Hey, Portland.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
You don't have to take me to the airport tonight.
No shuttle service tonight? You ready to fly, okay?
Yeah, I maybe get done to the Sky Club, get dinner, and then it's good real quick. I mean, gonna get, I maybe ate here, but I like wanted something before I have another one end of April. I just needed a flight for we missed the individual meetings, but I just they were cheap, so I got it.
How was the, show nights?
It was good. Yeah, it was, and the village shows I was doing to go through and meet.
Good to see new staff, and
I rarely get to spend much time on the floor. A lot of it's just with the CEOs and stuff. But I just don't, it's just because everyone's there, it's just easier to have meetings face to face.
This meeting is being recorded.
So, kind of nice. So, it was good. Again, that's what I have in and I've got New York weeks for Urban Land Institute, and I've got Phoenix, end of April.
you're the last, so you have the jazz.
They move, but it's in New York. Oh, what is it? At, development. It's real estate focused. It's all a real estate kind of association. But it's like commercial, mainly commercial and multifamily stuff. It's kind of like the home builder association, but for developers, just bigger. Context is good. So I set up a national council there for recreation resorts.
It's good. What's happening now with the issues?
A lot. Yeah, a lot's happening. I'm surprised that, so like that Disney is on that with me. We have real estate for Disney. And then had a real estate for Marriott on their. It is really great with people, you get with people who are villages, yeah. Yeah, you can kind of, you know, you don't play in the same sector, but it's just good to understand what they're doing and how does it influence. So, yeah, that's good.
Oh, builders, what's that called?
Urban and Institute. Yeah, they call it uli.org.
I have a question. When we go through things here, we make a recommendation. I apologize for being ignorant, I'm the new guy. When it goes to the county commission, the commissioners, and then they vote on it.
Depends, but yeah.
And I've been looking at the county commission meetings, and there were the three things that we had come up last time. Pump station, that 7-unit recreational lodge, right? And the transfer was 54 TDI. I've never seen those on the agenda for the county commissioner.
We can ask Rick of like, and when they put them on, sometimes you guys are working through stuff and with staff, so they might delay a month. They might not go right from us to the county commission sometimes. Staff or.
So it might not necessarily be the next meeting.
No,
It might
'cause
be
there
a
might-
period of time before they show
Well,
up.
there's times, wherever you want, there's times that we ask Cortland to go look into stuff before, so they need to then prepare to go to county commission. They're trying to get, we're somewhat preliminary, depending on the vote, on the legislative item,
Okay,
so it just depends.
all right.
Sometimes that we have seen it though, go from our meeting to their meeting, like the next week, just depends.
Okay. So they will eventually show up on their agenda.
And I think I'm saying this right, administrative items. Is there an administrative item that would ever go to the county commission?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, right?
Because they are not the final.
The land use authority is Rick, right? Well,
It's
we're.
either Rick or the planning commission.
So administrative items just go to the planning commission,
Right.
not to the commissioner.
Correct.
It's just legislative items that go to, in front of the county commissioner.
Correct.
Okay, I know.
And it obviously goes to the land use authority, then we've defined what land use authority is. This is exactly what I needed. Yeah. I noticed that Trevor reading from this and I was like, I don't know, it's like, oh, I want that.
You were gonna have to give Rick for not having it when we were up in the valley.
Oh, yeah.
And the TV came on and.
Yeah.
Okay, got Commissioner Wampler, Barber. I was, Commissioner Schuman coming tonight, or is he,
Haven't heard otherwise.
well, why don't we go ahead and get started and then
Commissioner Wampler.
he's online.
Oh, she's on.
I'm here.
Okay.
We're all in attendance, all commissioners here for the pre-meeting except Commissioner, Schuman at this point. Okay. Well, we go ahead and get started. I don't have a cheat sheet for the work session before, but how did you?
It's not a big deal. We just go through each item, what items you'd like us to go through. And.
We have a lot on here.
I know.
Today,
I know
so
there's
it's gonna be hard for me to pick. Okay, well, obviously you're here for the pre-meeting, so is there anything you want to cover in the pre-meeting? Or do you have to go?
On the discussion of the vice chair, I went in and checked, and Jeff was put in on August 2nd. And so he technically could finish out, his 2 years won't be until August 2nd of this year. So my recommendation would be to have Jeff be the vice chair and continue on there until it's such time.
Okay. I feel good about it. Is that, do we need to call for that, or can we just leave it? Since we voted saying it
You
can't.
already voted that, that could happen, and Corin, I don't think we need to take any more action on that, do you?
It might be good just to make note of it on the record in the actual
In the
meeting.
actual meeting?
Yeah.
So we'll bring it up, even though Director Grover won't be in there.
Yeah, I mean, I can
You'll bring it.
explain that during the meeting itself.
Vote in August.
Yeah, we're with our current rules of order, we will have have to revote and put it in one in.
For that, I'm thinking, since it's just remarked for legal counsel, since Rick won't be in there, maybe you just put that under yours and just call for that, since I don't know how else to do it, unless I could also do remarks from planning commissioners too, and I could do it then.
It is a discussion item on the agenda,
Oh, it is, yeah, so there we go.
so it'll be the
You're right,
first
it is.
item that gets talked about.
Never mind.
So, we're good.
Okay, all right.
So
Guess we-
out of curiosity, didn't we do chair and vice chair at the same time, or did we separate them?
No, we did. We approved it, but it was pending if Jeff had already served 2 years. We weren't quite certain on that date.
No, that I
And-
remember. I'm sorry. What I'm saying is, does that mean that Trevor is chair until August as well? Commissioner Schumann?
No, because he was in at a different time. He
Okay,
wasn't.
that
They
was
were
my
different.
question. Okay, perfect.
Okay. And then the other one was, there was some discussion, I believe you brought it up about making some changes to the general plan. That's not happening.
No, I never said changes. I said updates with respect to, like last year, it was requested for updates, and my recollection is the answer came back, the numbers and projections will be updated.
Yep.
And then I also suggested that, just this year again, that the work that's already been done with respect to sewer, water, infrastructure like that, that's already been done, it's in various parts and pieces, that be put together as an addendum to the general plan.
Yeah. Nothing's gonna happen with any of that till after the incorporation.
So 2 years, or 26.
We'll see, but right now, that's where the commissioners are at. And previously, when I asked them about updating the general plan, they said probably in 2028, 29, or 30, so, which is typical. So I know that you're antsy about making those changes, but that's typical.
I just want to continue to clarify, I'm not saying change with respect to, change direction or all of that. And I heard what they said last year. My outlook is that updates are different than changes. Updates are.
Process is the same.
Yeah, the process is the same, and so we're probably not gonna be looking at any major updates for quite some time. And if we're looking at any major changes, that won't happen most likely till 28 or 30.
I'm sorry, but what about, inserting the numbers of the studies that you guys have already paid for and were completed, just putting those numbers in?
Those are not completed. Those are things that we're working on. We're short-staffed right now. We don't have the manpower to do that.
Okay, I thought you
Still
guys had a
adding time.
meeting and publicly said about the water board and all that, about the water.
What I'm trying to understand is then if we even do that as a public hearing required, to even just add that staff numbers in.
And what?
And so that's, if I'm just trying to understand the perception of the commissioners is opening a public hearing on the Ogden Valley General Plan, just opening a public, even though we're just changing numbers, we're just really small, the public process is fairly large and detailed. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, and it just takes a lot of staff time to get there. You may not think it does from your side of things, but from my side of things, I see it from a different perspective, or because I'm dealing with a lot of things out west as well as the Ogden Valley. So,
Okay.
yeah, just want to be upfront with you and let you know.
And just to put this to bed, and then I do want to check out the app because I think there's some clarity that's needed around the app. You did bring up air rights. My understanding, I'm just gonna talk about this for a second as a developer. Air rights are only a thing if there's density and you haven't met your ceiling. You guys have to talk me through the code, but how that typically works, air rights aren't a thing. It's density. And if you haven't met your height, you could do a remodel and essentially add a floor if you haven't hit a height, but air rights, it's not, that's what you buy in air rights is you're buying.
So
Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you are.
my point is that a term, which can mean different things in different scenarios, came up and people were using it as if it meant something or as if they were referring to something real. So I just took a quick look to see if I could find that word in any county document, and I couldn't.
Right.
So it kind of just, it was being used.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's not really a thing, like a thing that they were using it for. So why you shouldn't use something for something it isn't?
The only way they could do something like that is through a development agreement, or you go above and beyond. Something.
I didn't want you to feel like you weren't heard.
No, I'm just thinking into the future. If this term gets legs or someone, tries to use it in a way that it doesn't exist, then it ought to exist or it shouldn't be used.
Yes.
But
For
One
sure.
thing.
that's fair.
Yep, for sure.
It's not a defined term. We shouldn't use it in a public setting,
Yeah.
A public meeting. Okay.
And I had a question on the general plan, right? Just as a for instance, it shows a village plan over here in Old Town Eden, it shows two villages, right? Okay, then it shows, village up in Nordic Valley, right? Okay, and so it was, I think it was dated 2016, updated in 2019, I might not have it exactly right. But from the planning department, as things are approved, do you, as a department, have like just a general map that shows, oh yeah, the general plan showed two things here, but now there's a red circle around Eden Crossing that's one. And now we've approved this up in Nordic Valley, we've done this up in Snow Basin. So do you keep that somewhere?
It's all current online.
So it's all current online?
It's still ready to try there from general plan. It's
Yeah.
all current.
Okay, so when you do the general plan online, it'll show you what's been approved.
And whenever an applicant submits something and it's requesting amendment to a general plan, and that actually goes through the legislative body, that's when those changes are made. All I'm saying right now is we just don't have staff power to initiate something.
Sure, I get it. So if I want to see, because I asked for a copy of the general plan, and they're kind enough, they gave me this. But if I want to see updates, right, so I've been looking at this, so if I want to see updates to say, okay, where is it now? I need to go online and things that have been approved will be shown on
Yeah,
there.
this is, as of the date that it was given to you, that's how it will appear online.
Okay.
And we just printed it off there.
Are you asking from a mapping standpoint? Like,
Well, no, I'm asking, like, for instance, right, if it was updated per the date, right? And if you look at the plan in here, and I'm not complaining one way or another whether it should have been done or not, but it shows Eden Crossing, and my understanding of the new vision for Eden Crossing, the general plan shows two village centers, right? And the Eden Crossing, in my opinion, appears to be one big village center where it combines those two.
There was some change made to the general plan, but most of the changes with Eden Crossing was a street regulating plan,
Okay.
which is an ordinance.
All right, so if I pull that up online, I'll be able to see where that's been updated. Okay, thank you.
But in the text, if we were to look at that document as of today, it doesn't talk about form-based zoning or that. That wasn't, because that wasn't a thing being considered in 2016. So that approach to zoning isn't in the general plan.
So I've got in the general plan.
Form-based zoning, street regulating zones.
It doesn't say street regulating plan, but it talks about mixed use village areas, and it mentions some form-based elements. Other questions? Okay.
okay, Bill, you want to run us through the application that we have one on the right? The legislative items, which we will be holding a public hearing, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and run us through that.
So this is a request for a development agreement. It will be a public hearing to discuss the item. The property owner owns about just a little over 8 acres in the Liberty area along North Fork Road. They've got 3 4-ish kind of lots right now, and I'm trying to bring it up, but my computer is being wonky, so I apologize. It was working great just a minute ago, and then I brought it downstairs, and now it's all haywire. But in the staff report, you'll see that there are a couple of different images that talk about the different plats that are currently applicable on the property. those plats have ended up with a couple of odd-shaped parcels. And so step number one and desire number one is to clean up those parcels and result in this sheet that you have in front of you. Commissioner Barlow, I don't think I gave you one of these sized sheets.
Funny to share, so.
Thank you. Yeah. There's one for you too, Bob. So if you look on the top, you see the red lots. Those are actually lots and parcels number 3 and 4 already have homes built on them. Parcel number 5 has a large barn on the property and no other structures. So the intent is at some point in the future that perhaps lot number 5 would be brought into the legal light of day and be a buildable full legal parcel, even if it's non-conforming with the underlying zoning. That's the rub though. We can't create new parcels that don't comply with the underlying zoning. We can readjust and things like that through the mechanism of a development agreement, but we can't create new lots and we can't end up with illegal parcels. So that's the point of the development agreement. Point number 1 is to.
By illegal, you mean less than 3 acres?
Exactly. It doesn't meet the AB3, FB3 zoning districts requirements for a minimum of 3 acres.
And when 3 and 4 had the houses put on, it was less than 2 acres at that point?
Correct. So they're legal non-conforming. The colloquial term is grandfathered, but the legal term is legal non-conforming lots. Lot number 5 also has a property right for building that's associated with it. And we're just consolidating and reconfiguring those lot lines so that they make more sense for future sale and future development of these properties.
What is the current building right is number 5?
It's a legal non-conforming lot currently. It's just not configured in the way that it appears on this plot map. Part number 2 for the development agreement is the donation of these remaining parcels that you see in blue to the, what was the outfit boss that's gonna take these? The conservation easement.
Ogden Valley.
Yeah, the Ogden Valley Land Trust. Thank you. Sorry, just a complete link. Ogden Valley Land Trust is going to take over the ownership of these parcels in the back. They will not be buildable. They will not be developable. All of the rights for development will be concentrated in the lots in the red, and then the parcels in blue will be in a conservation easement.
So you're saying 2 different things,
Yes.
ownership and easement is different. Which is it?
So they will be owned by the trust, and there will be a conservation easement put on the property, both. So they'll be owned by the Ogden Valley Land Trust, and they will, it's my understanding, they will have a conservation easement put on them. So no matter who owns it, that easement will stay in place and run with the land.
So there will be conveyance of title to the Ogden Valley Land Trust.
Yes.
The title,
Yes.
not just.
Of these 3 parcels.
Okay.
So they'll physically own this land, and then there'll be an easement placed on it, kind of like an easement for utilities that's placed on a lot.
Right.
But this will be an easement that will be placed on there that says that no structures could be built on.
And that's regardless of who owns the property.
I think that's where Commissioner Burton is, I think, getting to mind is, he's trying to understand why they're assigning ownership when you can just do an easement. I think that's what you're getting at, right?
Well, prior discussion was this would be an easement.
Yeah, there will be an easement. But then it was.
My question's always been, is fee title going to transfer to the Ogden Valley Land Trust?
Yes, he made that clear Friday morning that the desire is to transfer the title and ownership of the property to the land trust.
Okay.
How many acres is that?
It's about 5 acres.
Not buildable, of course.
Not buildable, never buildable. That's what the easement ensures, is that it will never be buildable. Furthermore, the easement conveys the idea, conveys is the wrong word. It brings across the idea that there are no building lots or rights associated with these parcels. They're remnant parcels. They're not buildable lots. We will never issue a building permit for them, and there are no building permit rights associated with these parcels to be transferred somewhere else in the valley. I think that was a concern as well, that by putting things in an easement, sometimes those rights remain with the property and can be moved or transferred to another place or further development somewhere else. That's not the desire here.
Okay,
Is that for whose benefit is the easement?
Sorry?
For whose benefit is the easement?
Well, there are myriad benefits, obviously.
No, in the actual granting an easement, you have to name for whose benefit the easement goes.
Oh, the land
If it's
trust.
a power line.
It'd be the
it
land
goes
trust.
To the power company.
Yeah.
So is it to the public?
This would be the land trust that we'd be going to.
But
I
the land
think-
trust owns it, and they're gonna grant the easement.
Yeah, I think what Commissioner Burton is getting at is if there is a transfer of property to the land trust, they can't grant an easement to themselves because that has no legal
Oh, I see.
effect. And we may need to look at the agreement itself, the proposed zoning development agreement, to make sure it says what you're
I'm
thinking.
going through that right now. Yeah, you're right.
What you're thinking here, because I mean, if they retain ownership and grant the easement to the land trust, that would have all the desired effects and be legally sound, but we might want to clarify that with them.
Okay. I think that there was some concern about taxation or other liability that could be associated with fee simple ownership of the property if the current landowners held on to it as their, fee simple, whatever, I don't know. But I know that the desire is for them to give over the ownership of either the easement or the fee simple property or both, however that looks, to the land trust so that they can focus on their 3 lots that are in red, and the rest of these parcels will be open space in perpetuity. That's the purpose of this.
So where you noted here, abandonment of certain rights, what specifically are they abandoned? Is that the land trust land, or is there something?
Correct. No,
else?
that's the land trust land.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
So we've heard about land trust trading land around. They all own fee simple to something. I mean, we're not gonna develop it. But then, I know there was talk of, well, they're gonna trade this land for some other land. And this land then becomes subject to development.
And that's,
Whereas if it had an easement on it, maybe it couldn't be. I guess if it ran to the land trust, they could say, do the same kind of trade.
or abandon the easement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nothing's in perpetuity.
Well, that's what I tell people is forever or 20 years, whichever comes first.
Yeah. Anyway, so if this were to get an affirmative recommendation from the planning commission, it ought to be subject to legal figuring out how to do this.
Yeah.
To achieve the desired result.
Yeah, in fairness, Cortland has not had a chance to review this yet. So we usually wait until after we get a recommendation from the planning commission before we send something like this on and have Cortland look at it in case there are substantive changes that stem from the planning commission's conversation. And,
Can I ask, a while back in a work session, we did some relatively theoretical work about whether or not we might want to offer incentives to put land in conservation. We might be willing to adjust some development, something somewhat similar to this, but am I correct that this is not that at all in terms of the person as well as this actual agreement?
Yeah, this was not part of that.
we were
Okay.
approached by the property owner to help with this kind of both orderly development of the property as well as put the land in the back in a conservation easement. This was the desire of his late mother-in-law, just to make sure that this land was protected forever and never would be developed. So that's what they're trying to do.
So lot 5, which can be developed now and would be developable in the future, will it be the same size, or is that increasing or decreasing?
It would stay exactly as depicted currently on this plat.
And 3 and 4, you said have existing homes,
Yes, that's
and they're
correct.
owned by the same ownership?
Yep.
Well, I say we move out of time.
And if those homes were torn down at some point, new homes could be built.
That's the purpose too, is if there was anything to happen, they could rebuild.
Could they do that now?
They could in the same footprint.
Same footprint.
This would allow additions and subtractions and whatever else they want.
Is that defined how big?
Yeah.
I don't think.
Where is that defined?
In the code.
I'm not sure, I just want to double check.
Bill, is that big?
Homes distributed, are these houses tear down type houses, or are they someone
I
living
don't
in
think
there?
so. I think Mr. Oberg lives in the one on the corner.
Yeah, he lives, I know, he lives in the one in the corner, no, that one in the middle, he lives there. His mother-in-law lives in the one to the right, and then he has a barn down there. I drive by, I don't know what he has a barn down there. Yeah, it's on where you turn left to go to the south entrance, it's right there.
So Bill, without this, they wouldn't be able to do that because the grandfathered home would be taken away and then they'd be under the new ordinance, is that true?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
The government drive, yeah.
We'll wait for Portland to get in here and we'll get started. All righty. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Ogden Valley Planning Commission to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then we'll go from there. Let the record show that all planning commissioners are in attendance with Commissioner Wampler online. And also this is my first time chairing, so feel free to give me feedback if I do something wrong. We do have a discussion item before minutes. Director Grover is unable to be here tonight, but we do have a discussion on the vice chair position for Commissioner Burton, I'll turn that over to Cortland to discuss.
Thank you. The Planning Commission at the last meeting made a decision to appoint Commissioner Burton as the vice chair if he was eligible. The ordinance that the county has and also the rules of order say a maximum of 2 years is kind of a term limit for a person as chair or vice chair. And there was a question as to when Commissioner Burton had been appointed as vice chair. Director Grover did the research and found out that he was appointed on August 2nd of 2022. And so he is eligible under the existing rules to serve through August 2nd of 2024. And so based on the motion that was made, it does appear that he is eligible to continue to serve now, at least until August. And so again, that does appear to be a motion that was already made in the previous meeting. So that's maybe just kind of an informational item as to what Director Grover found. The other thing I guess to mention is that the rules of order could potentially be amended. There's been some discussion of that to clarify what happens in a situation when there's a midterm appointment like this, because that is what happened as Commissioner Burton took somebody's place in August and just filled the remainder of that term. So we are looking at clarifying that. And so anyway, I guess this is just letting you know it is official that Commissioner Burton, based on that motion, is still able to serve for now.
So no vote is required, no necessarily to call for objection or anything.
Correct, because the motion was, it's noted in the minutes actually on page 9, that motion already was approved, it appears.
Okay. Let's jump to the minutes. We do have minutes in front of us for approval. I believe I saw some notes from Commissioner Wampler. Is there, Commissioner Wampler, any others? Like any?
So I submitted some revisions to the staff, and I just wanted to kind of verbally point out that whoever took the minutes has Commissioner Torman listed, where I believe it would be then Chair Schuman. So on pages 1, 2, 3, and 8, with the votes, they've listed Commissioner Torman as having voted. And then my other change was on page 8, second paragraph, on the third line. It quotes me saying that I have concerns that if the proposal was denied, there would be tax implications. It was actually, my concern was if it was approved. So switching denied to approved.
Okay. Any other changes? I reviewed those. Okay. With those minutes will be amended and approved as is. We have one item on the agenda for tonight. It is a legislative item. Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications that need to be noted by the commissioners? Okay. Then we will move on to item 3.1, public hearing request for approval for a development agreement between Craig, Oberg, and Weber County. I know Director Grover is here. Bill, are you taking over the explanation of that?
Sure. This is a legislative item, as has been pointed out. It will involve a public hearing, and this is ultimately going to be a recommendation to the county commission for approval or denial. And you may also table in the need for, if you find the need for additional information from either staff or from the applicant.
Thank you. And I believe you're presenting for us as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. This is a request from Mr. Craig Oberg for a development agreement by and between the property owner and the county. There's some property up in Liberty. It's located, as you see here on the screen. Eventually we'll catch up, maybe. It's not showing on the screen. Bear with me one moment. Okay. All right, you can see that there it's outlined in red. It's also in your staff reports. This property represents a total of currently 4 different properties. You can see from the depiction on this page as well as on subsequent slides here that the lot lines are unique and unusual and do not lend themselves to good development of the property or of the area. So the one of the goals of the development agreement is to rearrange these lot lines so that they make better sense for future development of the properties, as well as maintaining the property rights that exist on the properties. The other and more substantial request here, and the purpose of the development agreement, is to put the area that you see in blue on the screen into a conservation easement to protect those properties and parcels on into the future, to make sure that no development will take place on those properties. So the dual purpose here is first of all to rearrange and realign those property lines so that they make sense, as you see outlined in red, and then to create those 3 parcels in the rear of the properties that will be held in a conservation easement or given or sold to the Ogden Valley Land Trust to be kept as open space in perpetuity. This is in keeping with the general plan. There are a couple of different sections of the general plan that apply to this kind of request. And these 2 sections that you see in front of you now deal specifically with the desire to keep things in a conservation easement to help keep these spaces open and undeveloped. And then further, the purpose of the general plan is to help protect the property rights that exist in the Ogden Valley, make sure that those development rights are used appropriately and that development takes place in an orderly and methodical and careful way. That, as it says, that minimize the impacts of development that does occur and protect the features and character of Ogden Valley that residents value. So that's the purpose of this, and we feel like, staff feels like this proposal is in keeping with those desires. So we have a couple of different actions that can take place from this. As mentioned, you may forward a positive recommendation. You may forward a recommendation for denial, and you may also table the item if you need additional information.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes, the applicant is here.
Perfect. Any questions for staff? Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Or would the applicant like to say anything? You don't have to. You don't have to. It's just at your.
I'd be happy to.
So if you want to come up to the, state your name and where you're from, and
We appreciate what the county planners have assisted us with. This ground has been in my wife's family for a number of generations. Her mother owned a piece of this that we're asking to be bifurcated into the 1 acre lot with the house so it could be sold per the family's wishes and per her wishes to take the 2 acres in the river bottom and put that in the family trust as a legacy to her husband who's now passed away. What we'd like to do is take the other pieces of property that we own and put that collectively into a conservation easement to preserve that area in the river bottom, along with the with a nice portion of the North Fork River itself so that no development can occur there. Right now, it's mostly just, it's river bottom with trees. We do have a couple of horses back there. That's all that there is. So.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
Dr. Oberg, I need your help here. So the fee owner of this land that's going to have a conservation easement on it will be owned by a family trust. Is that right?
There'll be 2 family trusts that have those 3 parcels. The large parcel will be in the Shaw Family Trust, and the other 2 parcels, C and A, are in our family's trust.
Okay, so then you propose granting an easement to the Ogden Valley Land Trust.
That's correct.
Okay. That
For all
means-
3 parcels.
For all 3 parcels.
And may I just mention that we've been talking, there are other family members that have parcels around there. And one thing we're hoping and think may well occur is that once we get the land trust done, that we can encourage these family members to contribute additional acreage to that land trust. So we're hoping to have a, personally, I don't feel good about asking somebody to do something I haven't done. So that's what we'd like to do.
So when you use the term contribute, I think correct me. You intend that they also would have the.
Yeah, they
grant an
would
ea-
continue to
grant an
own their
easement-
parcels.
Yeah, grant an
but put them
easement
in
to the land
put
trust.
some of their acreage in a conservation easement.
Okay, so they'd continue to own it, but it
That's
would be
correct.
subject to this easement owned by the Ogden Valley Land Trust.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, any discussion or otherwise I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
First and a second. Perfect. And somewhat of a third. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. Please come up. Can't see online, Marta, all the way. If we want to stop sharing. We'll go ahead. Name, where you're from. We'd like to, I don't think we're too worried about time. Typically limit them to 3 minutes, but.
My name is Scott Murray. I live in Eden, and I am presently the chairperson of the Ogden Valley Land Trust. And when I saw this item on the agenda, it piqued my interest because we are very interested in preserving open space, conservation values of land. And my concern was that decisions were going to be made by the commission and by eventually the Weber County Commission without full understanding of what a conservation easement does and what Ogden Valley Land Trust does. And so my purpose here today is just to express gratitude that we're thinking about this, but there are I'm afraid we're getting the cart before the horse, because as a land trust, we have certain obligations and responsibilities that we have in maintaining these conservation easements that we are given. And so we have obligations, certain standards that we have to meet from a national organizational standpoint. And so the process of the conservation easement is more than just a stroke of a pen and an administrative decision. There's discussion, there's lots of detail that needs to be done in order to make that happen and make it happen appropriately. We're excited about being able to be a part of it, but it also has limitations and parameters that we have to live within. That's really the purpose of my visit here. And to this date, I'm not aware that we've been contacted that this is going on, and so we need to be aware of it.
Yeah, we'll just give it well, just for the record, just for the record, we'll want you at the mic just because we do record. So let him fit, and then I'll have you come back up so you can
To my knowledge, I'm not aware of it. Maybe other members of our board are. Anyway, that's the purpose of my visit.
Oh, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Could I ask a question, sir?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the concept of perpetuity with respect to land trusts and your organization?
The concept of perpetuity is we are an organization that we're incorporated in the state of Utah as a not-for-profit organization. We've been granted 501c3 status by the IRS. And as such, we have to maintain the integrity of these easements. And so, and in terms of perpetuity, our organization must maintain those easements. If we ever get to a point where we're unable to, we then are obligated to transfer these easements to another organization, like-minded land trust organization, that would then continue to hold these easements and enforce them. One of the things that generally people don't understand is that our land trust has an obligation on an annual basis to inspect the properties, document what's going on the properties, to verify that the easements have not been violated. And they do get violated periodically. And so therefore we have costs in terms of insurance and that administrative cost in holding these lands and administering them. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And a second question is, does the Ogden Valley Land Trust actually own any land, or do you just hold these easements?
Long question, or long answer to a short question. We have in the past owned land. We prefer not to own land, and it would be very difficult for us to own land. There's a lot of liability that goes with land ownership that the land trust does not want to assume. So therefore, our policy and most land trust policies are to not hold fee title to land. The land will be held by the owner, and they'll enjoy the ownership and benefits of that ownership, which in some areas of the country, conservation easement, land with conservation easements on them are becoming more valuable than land without conservation easement on them. So we're trying to educate the public that putting a conservation easement is not a negative. It can be a very great positive.
My last question is that into the future, is there any way for a landowner to unwind one of these situations?
No. That's why my comment about this not being just the stroke of a pen, it is a perpetuity. It is a decision and an easement that is placed on this land for perpetuity. And so thought has to be done through all of the various foreseeable options of the land. If we have had in the past, we have had landowners come to us, ask for an amendment to the easement. That is very rarely happens because of the fact that as an organization, we are charged to preserve conservation and the values that are established. So part of the process is you establish what the term is a baseline. So a baseline study is done by an engineer or someone that has knowledge of that type of environmental areas, whether it's wildlife, whether it's flora and fauna, whether it's open space. So this baseline study establishes what the conservation values of this property are. And so any amendment to that generally impacts that baseline study, and we are charged with maintaining that baseline as it is. That's why we have to inspect it. We've had trusts where conservation easements where up in the back country, we find four-wheeler trails going through the land. Well, that's not permitted. So then we have to go back to the landowner and say, you've got to do something to stop this, and fences have to be put up. Things have to be done to prevent that type of usage. So most people think in terms of open space, as long as there's nothing built there, it's okay. But there's more to it than that. Any other questions?
Mr. Murray, I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any conflict with this property being acquired or overseen by the Ogden Valley Land Trust?
In looking at it, it's a very small parcel. And so that concerns me. Not that it's, a small parcel can have very much value. It just has to be looked at. I don't see on the surface anything other than it in terms of maintaining and enforcing an easement, whether it's a 20-acre parcel, a 50-acre parcel, or a 2-acre parcel, it takes the same amount of time and effort to administer. And so when we have a landowner donate an easement to us, usually that landowner has to provide a financial contribution to our organization also to help cover the administrative costs of maintaining that easement.
That was my second question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
We'll give you just a second. Are there any, I just want to make sure there's no others that you would need to respond to. Is there any other public comment? Yeah. All right, any online things? Please raise however you do the emoji, raise your hand online if you would like to make a comment. I see really one. Okay. Dr. Oberg.
Appreciate you being here. We initiated an investigation of a conservation easement with a few years ago with Marlon Jensen when he ran it. And then he recommended that we talk to Steve Noel. We've invited Steve Noel about a year and a half ago, and he came and looked at it, gave us his recommendation, knowing that it had to come to you. When we got far enough along with Bill, that it looked like there was a possibility, because the first thing we had to do was separate that 2 acres off so that we could sell the home and appease that part of the family. The whole family, and some of them are here, are all in favor of this. Then Steve sent us a bunch of information to read, and then said once that was done, we would be coming to you, to your group, to take the next step. So we're apprised of that, and just working in a stepwise fashion to get there. We do think, even though it's small at the moment, which Steve mentioned, that it has value because it is a river bottom. It's a transient. It's an area where wildlife transfers, and it does contain a portion of the North Fork River, which would be protected. So,
and thanks for
that. So
thanks.
that's my answer.
And Dr. Oberg, I just want to make it noted. I just want to make sure that because that was important to hear on record. So that's the only reason why we interrupted you, just so that you can be heard.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I appreciate it.
Want to make sure we can pick it up. So.
Yeah, I'm used to classroom craziness. So yeah,
Okay.
Follow Robert's rules.
Before you step down, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Not seeing any other. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Oh, yeah, you might need that. Not seeing any other comments online or here. Oh no, that was that did look like. I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
Public hearing.
I got a first. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Does the planning commission want to have any discussion?
I just wonder if for some reason the Ogden Valley Land Trust doesn't want to take an easement, any motion would have to be subject to them taking the motion or taking it. Otherwise, the recommendation would be different.
Well, we could make the motion conditional on approval from the Ogden Valley Land Trust to take the land.
I think the development agreement. Doesn't it have language in there? The land has to go.
It does.
But I don't, we would be hamstringing them to one land trust. It could be any land trust.
I would note, and maybe this will just help the discussion along, in paragraph 3.1 of the proposed development agreement, it does say county agrees to allow reduced lot development standards as long as the property owner dedicates a conservation easement to an appropriate third party and no additional development lots are created. All lots dedicated for conservation shall be noted as such on the plat. That's what it says right now. And you may wish to say that is sufficient. You may wish to amend it with additional detail, and maybe working with Bill even after, this, like he mentioned, we haven't had a chance to really go over it in a lot of detail, but we might want to just shore that up a little bit, just to maybe even add, well, again, if you choose to, some additional detail about what needs to be preserved. So.
Thank you.
Question for Cortland. This is just kind of off to the side question. Are conservation easements ever dedicated just to the public in general?
I'm not an expert in conservation easements, but I would think that would be challenging because who would enforce it? If it were dedicated, and I don't know if this is even legally allowed. I know, let me back up a second. If it were dedicated to a specific governmental entity, that might be allowed. I know the county, I shouldn't say no, I'm quite sure the county has been named as a co-grantee on certain conservation easements, but I could be remembering wrong. But just to say dedicated to the public would be hard, because then who would enforce it? If it were the county, the county could enforce it.
Okay, so using the language of the proposed development agreement, an appropriate grantee could be the county.
I don't know. I don't know if that is actually legally allowed under conservation easement law.
So if this were approved and it reads it has to go to an appropriate
third party,
mm-hmm. we're covered.
I would think so. I mean, I would think we would be put in a position of needing to probably review whatever was proposed in the end and make sure it looked like it was legally defensible. And, if they tried to grant it to the county, we'd probably need to really do some research or get some expert advice as to whether or not that would be allowed. But yeah.
Ultimately, if it's an appropriate third party, everybody's intent is covered.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Bill, did anything come up during public comment? Do you want to address, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve file number ZDA 2023-02, application driven request to amend the development agreement on 8.17 acres of the property zoned AV3 and FV3 located at 5931 North Fork Road in Liberty. Do so with the following findings. The development agreement is supported by the general plan. The development agreement supports the good planning and development practices in the county. The development agreement amendment meets the requirements outlined in the land use code, and the development agreement amendment outlines the mutually agreeable terms as desired by the county applicant.
Okay, that was first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, go with Commissioner Burton on the second there. Just okay. I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Go ahead.
Chair, would the planning commission be okay with modifications necessary, if during the legal review, we determine that there might be some modifications to wording or something like that, as long as it preserves the basic intent that has been described to you tonight. I mean, ultimately, this goes to the county commission. But between now and then, if we determine that we need to maybe clarify that language about the conservation easement or something, are you okay with that?
Yeah, Commission.
Yes.
As long as it meets the general intent of what the applicant and what's stated here.
Okay, thank you.
Is that good for your second?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All commissioners were voted in favor, and recommendation passed with a positive recommendation. Okay, back on our agenda. Thank you. We will go to public comment for items not on the agenda. Any online? Okay. Any remarks from planning commissioners?
I have a remark. I just
Okay.
wanted to address with staff. I went to our Ogden Valley Planning Commission website, and we need to update with our new commissioners as well as our new chair and vice chair. We still have our old commissioners listed on the website.
Thank you. Bill, since will you take that to, thanks. Or Marta. Thank you. Any other comments from planning commissioners? I'm assuming no planning director report? Okay. Cortland?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
You live up in
Jason,